We can take a walk to that place. Okay. All right. Our flag is yet to be here.
We have it in other places. The AGBO is locked now.
Okay.
It's locked because of the COVID. So we open for places where people can go at times. But then those places there are flags. Like downstairs in the reception, you see the flags of many countries who are participants in the organization.
Thank you.
My name is Bede. Bede Uwalaka.
Okay, please tell us a little about your background, sir.
I am originally from Chokonese in the this local government area of Igbo State in Nigeria.
In Nigeria?
Yeah, and then I started like any other young person. I went through primary school, went to secondary school, and proceeded to the tertiary institutions where I got my degrees that eventually landed me to my career as a professor in the university.
Interesting. How long have you been in Cambodia, sir?
Well, it may surprise you that I've been in Cambodia for about 22 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
First in 1998. And in fact, I got to know about Cambodia when I was doing a project in Singapore. I spent some time in Singapore and it was time for some kind of recreation. And then I didn't have to go back to Nigeria, it was a long distance, or I didn't have to travel to London to meet my parents by 1998 then. So I asked our travel manager to introduce me to some Southeast Asian countries that I could travel for a short while to have some recreation and get some knowledge of the Southeast Asian environment. So he quickly recommended that I would go to Cambodia. I had never heard that name before, but when he mentioned it, I asked for some literature in the Lonely Planet. That was when I realized Cambodia was the Kampuchea Republic that had the genocide caused by the Khmer Rouge. That's how I got to know about Cambodia.
Wow. Interesting. So how was the experience for you being a black immigrant here at that time? 1998.
I would rather describe it as one of the first culture shocks I had in my life. Because the very first day I arrived at the international airport from Singapore, about 5 taxi drivers surrounded me to take me to my hotel, but then none of them could speak English.
Oh.
I became so afraid, based on what I had read from the Lonely Planet, that the Khmer Rouge were still operating in skeletal form, and I would be careful joining people I did not quite know. So I was so afraid, I thought they might take me to an unknown destination. I decided there and then to go back in that same flight if nobody could speak the language I could understand. But then I looked at my flight ticket, it was still okay. I could quickly confirm it and head back to Singapore. But just then a young man walked up to me and said, "Hello, do you want to go to my hotel?" I was like in a new world when I heard somebody speak English. So eventually when we were driving down into the city, I asked him why nobody spoke English in this country. He told me that the Khmer Rouge regime destroyed all educational institutions and they didn't want any foreign impact in the country.
So it was by choice?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So how did you get started? How was getting the job here was like?
This is how it started actually.
Okay.
Based on the fact that I wanted people who could speak my language, I asked the young man to take me to anywhere the people could speak English. And then he took me to New York City Center, somewhere in Batok.
Okay.
And then I could see people, young children who were conscious of learning English language. They were coming there 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, 1 hour every day. he introduced me to the owner of the school, Mr. Chia Tilai. And then Chia Tilai was very happy that somebody who could speak English had the time to come. So he encouraged me to interact with the students. The students themselves were very happy to interact with a kind of native speaker. So every evening I could spend my time at least to meet people who could speak my language. And when that happened, towards the end of the time I was going back to Singapore, Mr. Tilai said, please, the children had made a request that I should stay back with them. And then I told him, look, I have my project in Singapore and I have to go back. He said, no, if you had to go back, the students will not be happy. I'm going to employ you, I'll give you a job, I'll give you hours. But I told him, you cannot give me as much as I would want, or as much as I earned in Singapore. He said, okay, even if I don't give you enough, you can still get more hours elsewhere, because there were only few English language centers in the city then. So I decided to sympathize or empathize with the students, kind of. I stayed back. That was my first employment. I was teaching them English language every evening, Monday to Friday. And then I got other jobs, and I was paid per hour. I got other jobs to supplement, only teaching and teaching and teaching at that time. Do
you mind we ask about what was the rate, the hourly rate at that time?
Usually, that was quite personal, but I would say in general terms, foreign teachers were paid from $6 an hour.
As per that time?
As per that time, $6 an hour, and you could work a maximum of maybe 12 hours a week.
12 hours a week.
Yeah.
So were there other Africans here when you first moved here?
In fact, the very first African I met here was one Joseph Ozo Eruka. We used to call him Kennedy.
Where's he from?
Kennedy is from Anambra State.
He's in Nigeria.
He was from Anambra State, Eruka. In fact, yeah, the son of former owner of Eruka Motors in Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah, he was teaching here too. But then he didn't find it very, very funny. He later left after some years after qualifying in computer technology. So he took up a better job in Vietnam and left the country. Another Nigerian who was here by then was one Peter Brown, who was running chauffeur service. He had taxi cabs and vehicles, running airport taxis at that time. In fact, he was the sole proprietor of transport services, private transport services in Cambodia then.
At what year?
1997, 98, 99. So those were the two. But I will not fail to mention one prominent among them who was here before I came. In fact, there was the three of them. One young man called Augustine.
Okay. Augustine.
Koladoye.
Oh.
Bayomi.
Okay.
Austin was teaching, and still he teaches at Northbridge International School. He is the sports director, and then the three of them were here, and then I joined them. There were only four of us Nigerians in Cambodia. We used to act like brothers, and we really understood each other in our situation. Wow. Those were the first Nigerians who were here, but I will not say they were the first Nigerians, because there were some Nigerians who had been here during the United Nations transition aid for Cambodia. They call it UNTAC. They were military attaché who came to restore peace in Cambodia in 1972. So they were here before us, but they came on an assignment and they left. But these are people who came here as economic migrants.
Whoa. So Mr. Austin has been here for a long time.
He was here at least 1 year before me.
Before you?
Yeah.
Wow. So what do you think of the African community currently?
You cannot say currently without going back
from then and now. From then and now. Actually,
then, like I said, we were just a few. We treated each other as brothers. And of course, we were meeting at Peter's place on Northern Boulevard anytime, and we would really talk over our issues. There was no embassy presence in Cambodia, and then, as would happen in any developing economy, the Nigerian community continued to grow Many people started coming in, some also left, but more people came into what we have at the moment, where the population numbers up to what I cannot even state categorically right here. Sure.
All right, that's interesting. So what opportunities actually that are here in Cambodia for African migrants, not just Nigerians? Are there opportunities?
Cambodia, being a developing country, really has opportunities, but there is no pro without a con. The prospects are there, the constraints are there. Primarily, Cambodia is not an English-speaking country. Khmer is their official language, and of course, due to integration with many other global nations, English has become the second language. As such, primarily, English language is the main economic opportunity for any African or anybody who can speak English. But then, we have that which could be skilled. But on the other side, there are still unskilled labor. But the aspect of unskilled labor is not quite prominent because Cambodians themselves need the jobs. So it may be funny for somebody to move out from the distant Nigerian or African continent coming to Cambodia to take up an unskilled job. But due to the enterprising nature of Africans vis-a-vis Nigerians, many of our brothers and sisters here have found a base for subsistence where they operate their own businesses. Unlike many, there were just few of us. Nowadays, we have so many people who are running their own businesses, which I may not even mention here. But notably, Nigerians in Cambodia are not mainly in the education sector. They're just part of that. But we have got most of them running businesses, restaurants, media services, music, then sports, football. We have them in missionary activities. We also have them in sales, especially servicing the needs of most African community by selling the African foodstuff or products here. And of course, there are still some running international businesses, importing and exporting. They are aspiring in it. Good or bad.
Very wonderful, very wonderful. What's okay, good or bad, like you said, what are the bad things, the difficult things that Africans moving here will probably encounter?
Difficulties Africans encounter mainly it stems from diplomatic issues. Every country would guard its territory jealously, and Cambodia is not an exclusion. As a result, the issue of migration is countered by visa issues, whereby they will permit people to come or not to come. So many of the people who came here were promised bread, butter on their bread. Eventually, they saw it the opposite. Based on that contrary turnout, many people are facing visa issues here. And of course, the absence of our embassy nearly jeopardized it, but the leadership of the Nigerian community here,
NIDO Cambodia,
Nigerians and Diaspora Organization Cambodia chapter, helped to mitigate the whole thing, and then from time to time the embassies would come here to capture the people in order to renew their passport booklets so as to minimize the issue of overstay or passport expiration. However, that one is one part. Another problem is that of getting the job. Since they were promised a job from Nigeria or from Africa, and when they came here, they found out that there was really no job. They were more or less stranded. And these have led most of them into some illegal businesses. That is, doing certain things contrary to the dictates of the law, in which case many of them don't find life here convenient. They don't find it easy, and most of them don't even have where to hold on. They may not find it comfortable going back home. They may have even the flight ticket or even the money they would want to use to replace whatever they have spent coming out here. So difficult for them. again, there is this kind of discrimination which the NIDO community tried to control. You know, people see blacks as some other different kind of race, but I must state here that anywhere in the world, when the black man is not present, the world is not complete. And praising the black man also for being the architect of most of the developmental factors all over the world. Nigerians, Africans, they also have come with the talent Cambodia needs. And I myself will be an example. I was retained because I came with what they needed.
Yeah.
And they are tapping from that resource, which led me to teach lecture in the Royal University of Cambodia, Bill Bright University, Norton University, Panesastra University, Western University, now LimKokwing University of Creative Technology. So many other people are doing the same. They are usefully engaged, giving out the special talents which are lacking in Cambodia. And this is an advantage. So despite the problems we have, we still have some good part of it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now, earlier you made mention of culture or something. Is there, we would like you to touch the area of cultural differences between Africa and Asia, let's just say Cambodia and Nigeria.
So to say, when we study sociology, we are told that no two cultures are the same, and this is true. Every country has their own culture. Let me say, every society has their own culture.
Definitely.
They may be similar, but similarity is not sameness. As it is, one of the first, the second culture shock I got when I came to Cambodia, when we talk of culture differences, was that all my life I have never eaten with chopsticks. But eventually, when we came here and then I attended my first wedding party in Takeo province in 1999, we were given the chopsticks. I wanted to be polite with my other lecturers at the table. I tried what I had never done before in my life. But when I picked up the peanuts, it fell off. And people were laughing at me. In fact, I was not comfortable. So I was given the prerogative of just using my hands for that. Well,
so you use your hand?
Yeah, I had to scoop it off and use my own plate and use my hand to eat it.
What about the other spoons? They can give you the...
There was no spoon. That is only just
like, there are
1999.
There are other traditional spoons that they use at that time.
Yes, I'm talking about in
1990.
Takeo province in 1990.
Okay. So you had to use your hand in the open place like that?
Yes.
Wow.
Like eating the peanuts, I had to use my hand. Eating the meat or fish, I had to use my hand.
Was that fairly embarrassing to you?
Well, it was actually, I must be honest. Other aspects of culture, we can see the way the marriage culture goes entirely different. I know that when I got married, my wife came over to live in my own family with me. She changed her surname, maiden name to mine. But unlike that, in Cambodia, it's not the same.
Yeah.
When a man gets married, he would leave his own family and go to live with the bride's family, the spouse family. And then the wife would retain her maiden name. She would never change it. Okay. In fact, in Cambodia, there are only 2 women who got married and changed their names. And this is for political and royal reasons. The wife of the Prime Minister and the wife of the King.
Oh, I just got to know that now. Okay,
this is Moninia Norodom Sihanouk. And this one is the wife of Hussein.
Hussein,
yeah. I cannot remember.
I don't remember her full name right now.
I knew it. Okay. I see her picture. But then she is, she added, or she adds
Hussein to her name.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is not. Go ahead.
That's not all about the culture. There are so many other things. The food culture is entirely different.
Yes.
Because there's a world of, even though the ingredients found in Nigeria, some of them are still found here, but there are still a world part. There are still a world apart. They cannot ever be the same. in the food culture. I'm not talking about the language. This is an aspect of culture. There's a world of difference between our language and their language. And of course, the characteristics of family upbringing. Yeah, I think we adopt more of the Western culture in Nigeria than they adopt.
Yeah.
They do not even adopt the Western culture.
They are more typical of
like
tradition.
If you attend a wedding party here, you will not see a wedding cake. Instead, they will make use of fruits. But then, you cannot organize any wedding in Nigeria without a cake.
Even the tradition now has a cake.
Things like that. There are so many things, so many world of differences.
Quite. This is very interesting. So, it's a lot interesting. I just got to know that even Cambodians, their women retain their name. I have no idea about that.
They don't change their names, even leave their family due to marriage.
Wow, that's interesting. Thank you for that. What do you think of the perspective of Cambodians about Africans migrant here? I'm not putting you in it, just in the general view of it. What do you think? What's your own idea about it?
In fact, perhaps up till now, many Cambodians have not set eyes on any black person. And this is why whenever one sees a black person, that person will alert another person to come and see something different in the world. But then, they used to think that the blacks are from a different world. In fact, it was difficult for them to believe that they would touch the black skin like mine and see whether I was painted black. Another one, they thought that the African continent generally is too hot and the sun is much lower and the continent is too hot that it burns our skin. But we told them this is nature. And of course, whatever their perspective could be, we have black Americans. We have black Europeans, we have black Indians, we even have black Cambodians. So we have to say that the black is not. But one thing is, due to their cultural belief, they still think that the blacks come from a different world.
Different universe.
We are not aliens, but they still have no definition. But one thing is this. Some of them have that kind of remorse, but most of them love Africans. They love Africans to the core. They tap the knowledge of Africans. They need the strength of Africans. They need the skill of Africans. They see that Africans are essential commodity. They are quite inevitable in their developmental process. And even in their love life, we can see most of their girls getting married to
our
brothers. Though I've never seen our sister marrying a Cambodian.
We are yet to see that. Maybe someday soon we will get to see that. That would be very interesting to see though.
Well, it has to be the other side of the story.
Okay, so basically, I mean, obviously we understand your position in African community, especially in Nigerian community, as a special advisor to NIDO, as an organization taking care of Nigerian welfare in Cambodia. What can you tell us about NIDO Cambodia?
This question might take us a little bit down the memory lane.
Well, we have it all the time.
At the time, when there were just few of us here, we used to meet not for any official purpose at that time, but we were just meeting to share our love and unity. Until one time, the embassy identified itself that Cambodia is concurrently accredited to them from the Philippines. So that was when we identified with the embassy. But then...
What year was that?
That was in 1999.
1999.
Yeah. It led us through close association with the embassy. But certain things happened, and then we couldn't stay together as we had wanted, because some of us left and some other people digressed, kind of. So that was like a suspension of the Nigerian driving home back from school. My phone rang and the caller identified himself as the consular of the Nigerian embassy calling from the Philippines, and then said if he could meet us for any reason, that he had been calling all numbers and none of them could go, and he was lucky my own could go through. So anyway, to cut the long story short, he asked us to assemble, that he would be coming. So I took it upon myself to
organize,
assemble, convene all Nigerians, as many of them as I knew. And then I personally, with my wife, hosted them and then treated them to a good welcome, and they introduced their purpose. So that was the birth of the Nigerian community.
Do you remember the numbers then?
Well, maybe around 50.
50, including the ambassador?
No, the ambassador and his entourage, the consular, they were visitors. We are talking about the number of us here, about 50 of us. And then we held that inaugural meeting, and from there we started a meeting on a regular basis, formed the Nigerian Community Association in Cambodia. Election was conducted. Even though I was asked to be the president, I declined that maybe by virtue of age or experience, that I should be on the advisory side. That was how I decided to stand apart, to let other people take up the mantle of leadership. So the Nigerian community continued, and the population also continued to grow. By then, Gabriel K. Gaddafi was the leader of the community. He led us through the expiration of his tenure of office. Then another election was conducted. One Andrew was elected, but unfortunately he died. His vice took over, Tony Emmanuel took over, but had some other misconceptions. Then the seat became vacant again. An election was conducted which crowned Austin Kaladoya Bayomi the incumbent president of the community. So, from what you said, this is how we came to where we are today. And then looking left and right, front and back, we notice an influx of many Nigerians into the country. We notice the union between many Nigerians and Cambodian women coming up with children. So we have got a lot of mixed blood here. Of course, there are Nigerian children. Going by our culture, the man is the owner of the child, unlike the culture in Cambodia, which is more matrilineal. So the community is as it is, numbering more than 1,000 as far as I know now. And then we have been united in the name of Nigerians in Diaspora Cambodia. And then I have been playing that advisory role, working hand in hand with the president and the executives of NIDO. Okay. There are so many things that happen in any government. You may see somebody at the helm of affairs, but there are other kingmakers, there are other pipers who blow the horn. It's not only the dancer who will be noticed. But in this case, there are so many other issues where we put our heads together to rub minds, rub shoulders, and then come up with solutions to it. We have been faced with some obstacles, meeting the government, running around about the welfare of our people, maintaining continuous, regular, up-to-date contact with the embassy, reaching the home front, whatever it is, admonishing our people here, advising them, supporting them financially, materially, otherwise in any way we can, so that we will at least control their excesses, at least live within the arms of the law of the host country. In fact, the role of an advisor is not simply what I can explain in just a moment, because it varies. Different issues come up, and at a time, the president or the ESCO, they may want some ideas where we suggest we chip in the best we can, eventually lead to the formation of the Elders Council of the Nigerians in Diaspora, where we would come together like an executive committee or a board of directors, board of trustees as we call it, to find a way forward or to handle the issues that confront us at one time or the other.
All right. Having said that, are you always approve of all the policies by the executives and the leaders?
That can never happen in any polity. You can never be a yes member all the time. There must be points of opposition.
What are your disagreements?
We are individuals and we are entitled to opinions.
Okay.
In which case, sometimes people would come up with an idea that is not workable. If I give you a simple example, though it started from NIDO down to the IGBO community here, people advocated for a general meeting, and there's a standing order which could spark or inspire a general meeting. At least you must have essential items on your agenda. There must be logical reasons for convening a general meeting. So in the Nigerian community, some people said, let's have a general meeting, let's have a general meeting. And I said, I suggested, if you want us to have a general meeting, then come up with plausible agenda. So I said, yes, we need to come together and think about a way forward. I said, that is not an agenda, it's not an item in the agenda. Think a way forward. You can stay in your house and think of a way forward and propagate it. This is part of the reason why it has not been the best thing now to convene a general meeting of Nigerians in Cambodia. Other things notwithstanding. But then, I am not counting out the impact of the coronavirus, which will narrow it down now to the IGBO community, where I am steering the organizing committee. A couple of days ago, some people have approached me and said that there should be a general meeting. I said, the Cambodian government has imposed restriction on any form of gathering. How can we gather? Do you know the number of Igbos who would come for that meeting? You are trying to expose us to danger, or you want us to contradict the laws of the government, that I am not going to be a party to convening any meeting at this time. So it took us some arguments, but I didn't subscribe to it in the long run. 2 days later, somebody came up with the same idea, and I said, okay, if you want us to have a general meeting, give us the agenda. He said, yes, the agenda is we need to sit together and plan the way forward. I said, planning the way forward is not an item in the agenda. The next day, somebody else came up with another idea, and then he said, if we cannot hold a general meeting, hold an executive. Before I could reply, another person replied. I said, what happens in an executive is an aftermath of what comes from the general meeting. Since there's no general meeting, what is the executive going to discuss? If the steering committee feels that there is a need or there is an emergency, then there will be need for meeting. But meanwhile, there's no emergency. So, you see, these are some of the problems we face in trying to handle issues as they arise.
It's alright. It's okay. It's good to know that. But from what you've said now, it's the organization is growing and it has its branches and all that, and they are all under the umbrella of NIDO, right? From what you said, they're all under. So, what do you think should be the future of NIDO Cambodia in terms of rendering services to Nigerians, and what do you think it could be the future of NIDO in 5 years' time, 5, 6, 7, 10 years?
In the first place, the NIDO we have in Cambodia is just to take care of our internal welfare here for now.
That is the structure.
Yes, but the national structure of NIDO comes from Abuja. And my last reference to Abuja, The message was that they are still coming up in order to inaugurate NIDO in all the other countries, which they have not done so far. The lady in charge of Nigerian Diaspora Commission is still working with the committee to come up with real modalities. As it is, the Nigerian embassy recognizes NIDO, and that is the only channel through which they can reach out to various communities in the world. Which means, going by that, people should not misunderstand what NIDO stands for. NIDO is a professional organization. In the past, and even up till now, I may be one of them, Nigeria has suffered a lot of brain drain. There are so many of us first-class materials who abandon the country in search of greener pastures. So this is part of a way to bring back our lost glory for the development of our country. This is on the blueprint, it's on the drawing board of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission, and whatever tune they beat, we are going to dance it over the years. And people who are qualified would have a place in the future Nigerian Diaspora Organization. Meanwhile, what we have done in order to start holding ourselves together is the formation of the State Association, which later on started to diverge into, I can say, unions of different ethnic groups. Now, there are standing bodies recognizable still under the umbrella of NIDO, and as it is, there are still, like we said before, there could be voices of opposition. Last time, I advised that, for example, with the formation of the IGBO Union here, made up of 5 states, it does not, because we can reach the grassroots through the individual states. Like we are under the central umbrella of NIDO, the states will be under the central umbrella of the ethnic union.
Yeah, sorry sir, with that part of the ethnic union, is it so necessary to actually have these different section of Igbo, or it's just rather not be one umbrella of Igbo community in Cambodia? Because we now have Enugu, Anambra, Abia. Why is that there cannot just be one Igbo?
No, there is one Igbo. Those ones are not ethnic. These are, like you have a heading, then you have subheadings. When you have a committee, you have subcommittees.
What is the brain behind that?
The brain behind that is to foster unity and then reaching them to the core. If I give an example, when one of our brothers was killed in a motor accident, we had to trace the family through the state. At least that is a gateway. Is a gateway to. And then the contact was maintained at the state level with the family, and then at a federal level with the higher authorities of NIDO.
Okay.
And then in between NIDO and the state, the Igbo Union was there. It made things work out as it is. So it is that in any situation, you have committees, you have subcommittees. The 042 or Enugu or whatever was not set up to overshadow the Igbo community. The Igbo Union is the official umbrella union. Okay. All of them. We have other associations, we have religious associations, we have football associations. So it is that people enjoy that freedom of association. It must belong. Okay,
that's enough to know about that. The area I want you to talk about a little bit, just make it brief, sir, on this one. The community is really growing. The community is growing. And we, like you said earlier, we have no idea, you and I or any other person have no idea of the actual number of Nigerians here. How do we contain that too? What is the plan of NIDO as an organization to actually figure out the number of Nigerians in Cambodia anytime soon?
One thing I did, which also got an opposition, that was about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I instructed some people to create a WhatsApp group. It is not a meeting. It's just a WhatsApp group where, for example, all the Imo State, let me use that state for example, all the Imo State citizens resident in Cambodia should register. Just like what Cambodia is doing now with the foreign presence in Cambodia system. So they want to have a database of everybody who's a foreigner. So it is that I suggested that we have a database of anybody who is a Nigerian here. And like I said, we can only reach them through the states of the sub-associations. That, my suggestion, is still in the cooking, even though it made some opposition. But we still want to see the logical aspect of it. So that by doing that, we will have a nominee. It's not asking you your passport number. People are so conscious of that. It's not asking you your job or your house address. No.
Just indicate.
Indicate that you are here, register. So with that, we'll be able to have a role of Nigerians.
But that idea is not being supported.
I have got only one opposition. Only one.
Only one opposition.
Yeah, it's still cooking.
Still cooking.
Yeah.
All right, we hope that will come up soon. And right now we're going to talk about though you have throw some light on it, but in a brief form, what is 1, 2, 3 role of special advisor? Do you have any, what should I call it? A kind of a constitutional right over the leaders or something like that? You understand what I'm trying to say?
The position is an appointed position, even though it has a place in the Constitution. It has a place in the Constitution. And, you know, based on where we come from, we respect gray hair. Let me use that word, old age. So we see that kind of respect, that kind of regard. The role, actually, is multifarious. That's why I said before, I cannot specify exactly that this is the assignment, this obligation. Different things happen at different times.
It depends on the events.
Depending on the outcome, then I'll be consulted. What do you think about this? What do we do about this? And then right from the onset, I have been chipping in my little contribution to make things work.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let's get a little bit personal now. What has been your toughest challenges being in Cambodia as individual?
In the first place, it may not be my only challenge. It might be the challenge of every foreigner, because once you are not in your fatherland, you face a lot of challenges.
Sure.
In the first place, I had a little problem adjusting into a strange community. And then, by virtue of our color, we were more or less discriminated to an extent. But by virtue of our skill, they had no choice than to embrace and accept us. And secondly, when I took up full residence here, I was unable to get a full-time employment. Full-time employment was given to white skin, to an extent that at one time, somebody who was a plumber in his white country confided in me and said, I don't know how to do this. To be honest, I'm not a teacher, I'm a plumber. Another person was a taxi driver, and they were employed as full-time teachers here when they didn't know it. So I was a bit demoralized. It was a challenge to me. I said, God, is it a crime to have black skin? I said, no, I cannot give up. I must be proud of what stuff I'm made of, and then black is beautiful. There are other challenges. Being a part-time teacher, I had to run from different schools at different times to make ends meet. This happened especially when I was training my children. But I happened to be able to gather enough to train them up to university level. 3 of them are graduated now. And then I found it also a bit difficult controlling our people here. We have our way of life, and it's not easy to control the masses. That has been a big challenge on my part.
Obviously, we know that. Anyway, you've said a lot, and without holding much of your time, what should be your best advice for Africans in general, back home or somewhere else that looking into moving to Cambodia?
I would not discourage anybody who would want to look for greener pastures. But with my experience in Cambodia, for now, due to things that have happened, I would not advise any Nigerian to come into Cambodia unless you are authentically employed. There is a job you will do.
Waiting for you.
An assignment you will do when you come. Don't ever leave on promises. I would advise them, do not sell any piece of land, any property, any asset, just to buy plane ticket and start coming to Cambodia because it is the wrong destination for you. But for those who are already here, it is like a dilemma. Going forward is a great difficulty and going back is impossible. Or either of them could happen. In which case, those who are here can stay until the black turns to white or the red turns to green. Things can change, but they must live within the laws of the host country. They must do something that is reasonable and acceptable by law.
All right, how has the COVID-19 affected your work, sir?
COVID-19 did not affect me so adversely because our work had continued uninterrupted. I mean, coming to work every day, and of course, the only area it affected is moving from the traditional classroom into the online classroom. So now we teach students online, and of course, everything stands uninterrupted. We try to make the students adapt to the new system, and we are still working towards that. So far, it's working well. That's the little way it has affected my job, moving from the traditional classroom to the online classroom.
That is what do you call it? Okay, never mind. Let's just go to, what's your opinion on the $3,000 levied on foreigners coming into the country by the ministry?
I think that one has been lifted already.
Partially, not fully.
They were to meet last week and they're waiting for their final.
I did see some information about that last night, that they allow people to come in, but I just wanted to, let's just say that that thing is still there. So
my impression is that there is no country that imposes that kind of levy. Instead, they can create a quarantine place and the person could sponsor it by himself or herself, not paying to the government, which might be wrong or mishandled. And those who don't have it would be advised to stay back.
I also saw in the news yesterday that policies that was introduced could affect the tourism system of this country for the next 7 years. Generally,
the tourism industry of anywhere in the world has been affected. Definitely. We don't, they say 7 years, we don't even know for how long. So the situation has its counter effects.
Okay. All right, let's take you back home to our home country right now. Okay, this is very interesting one, all right? With what is going on in our country right now, what is your take on it?
It is not repeating what other people have said. Our problem has been leadership. Those old hands have refused to give up and let new hands take it up. When we look at most other countries, they have youthful leaders. Canada has youthful leaders. Australia, young ladies, they are all there. But such opportunities are not given to our people. And unfortunately, our youths don't even know what they are supposed to do because they quest for hunger. Then that is trying to get something in the short run with a negative long run effect. So it is that leadership has been digressed into the wrong avenue. And when people are in such a situation, corruption is the order of the day. At least for now, the country is surviving. The country is existing, but the country is not living.
It's not living, no doubt. So, what is your impression of the current ruling government? The ruling government. We have the APC government. What is your impression?
I would rather say every government would praise itself.
Definitely.
And no particular government can satisfy everybody. There are areas they are doing good enough. There are other areas they are doing their worst. But I would simply say they should focus more on the welfare of the people.
Do you think there is a particular area they have done good enough?
Yes.
Which is?
The country is yet undivided. Either by hook or crook. That's good enough. Because they will take a credit for not allowing disunity and the splitting. But in other aspects, the welfare of the people has been thrown to the grasses.
Would you consider Professor Bede Uwalaka a politician? No,
I'm not. Even though in the 1980s I was a student union leader, national leader of students in Nigeria, in 1985-86 in Lagos, and that was student politics. But looking at politics, I describe it as a very beautiful game, but those who play it are dirty. They don't want to be among the dirty people. So I'm not a politician.
So you're not a politician?
No, I'm not.
But you are currently sitting in a political position. How do you talk about that?
No, I am on a leadership position, not a political position. There's a difference between leadership management or that kind of...
Can you lecture us on that?
Yeah, if you want to lecture on political leadership, there are a lot of manifestations and manipulations in politics. But in leadership, there's a lot of strategies.
Okay, I know that you didn't say that you reserve your comment on this number 24 question, but who has ever been your best president in Nigeria?
Me, when I was the president of the students' union, the national president, it has been me.
No, we're talking about the federal level. Who has been your favorite president?
It will be difficult to give you the right answer to that question because Nigeria has had presidents, prime minister has had heads of states, military heads of states, and all the rest.
Okay.
So, if you say president, what would happen to the heads of states?
All right, we understand you're trying to avoid that question. It's all right. Okay, now let's come back to Cambodia. There was a time I made a post about the first Nigerian restaurants, and I remember I got some responses from people like you and others. So I would like you to tell us right now, what is the first, what was the first African or Nigerian restaurants in Cambodia?
The first Nigerian restaurant in Cambodia was called BOC International Guest House.
BOC International Guest House. Run by who?
Run by Bede Uwalaka.
At what year?
That was 1999 to 2001.
Where about?
On the lake side. The lake side has now been reclaimed as now the bypass. There was a big lake, Bangkok Lake here. Okay. So that restaurant was on the lake. So looking the lake, and then it was a guest house and restaurant at the same time.
Okay, judging that now, because at that time I wasn't here, so I was looking at when I was here, and this information was never close to me. So did that make you feel anything? That was how you have to respond? Because I still have the text.
It was just in the quest for giving the correct information, giving the update so people could know exactly what really happened in their absence. I personally started that restaurant. I remember Austin, the NIDO president, used to drive his car down and then open the boot of his car and play Nigerian music from there, loud enough for people to wonder what was really happening at this place. I remember some of our brothers who were in prison for one reason or the other. We used to help them out, but some of them were released and I had to accommodate them until they found a way of leaving the country in the long run. So those are some of the things that happened at that time. And of course, African food was served there, except the latest
fufu
things we have now. There was fufu, but things we have now like issue, goat head, or these point and kingfish. We didn't have that in those days.
Those are just recent.
Yes, basically that was the only African feeling of this environment.
Okay, so being a busy man that you are, we want to know a little bit about your personal life. Do you sometimes get in the kitchen in business, like cooking food yourself? This is after running the restaurant.
You are taking me back to the memory lane again. When I was in high school, 1971, 72, before I went to Enugu in 73, I was cooking for myself. I was a day student, so I started the issue of cooking when I was a high school student. And when I came over here, I didn't forget that skill. And then, when eventually I left the restaurant for a full-time participation in the classroom, up till now, even when my wife is here, I always participate in even doing the dishes in the sink. Cooking, frying the eggs, or making soup or stew, boiling chicken or meat or stir and things like that. Sure.
There is an impression by our brothers, not just in Cambodia, even back home, when a man is in the kitchen assisting a wife, like cooking and doing some things. I even remember a situation whereby a man was running a restaurant with his wife and he was washing the dishes and all that. People were taking on him seriously, like he's a woman rapper, like they say it and all
that. That should not be a stigma, because if we look at the developing world, we find a concept of equal rights. We don't need to place anybody as a second class. You should contribute in any way possible to show that good example even to your children, because you don't know the kind of world they're going to live in tomorrow. At the same time, the family is one. You are supposed to do whatever you can to keep the family together. And of course, there's no pride in it. In fact, if we go back to the grammatical aspect, what do we mean by Commonwealth? Commonwealth of the family.
Okay, sir. Tell us about raising kids in Cambodia.
Yeah, this is a matter of the family which should be shared for people who are coming up. In fact, I've had my own share of it. I had an experience. My 3 sons were not born here, but they were raised here. It's only my daughter who was born here, and I had to raise all the 4 children here. One thing is this: raising a child in a country like Cambodia is different from raising a child like in Canada, in the United States, and the United Kingdom.
Even back home?
Yes. In not referring specifically back home, in any other foreign land, there are certain prerogatives the child would get. Some children would enjoy free education. Some children would enjoy some other facilities, other rebates. But unlike here in Cambodia, even a child who is a minor pays adult visa fees. So it meant that all the time I have been paying visa fees for children. And this is unlike any other place. Children don't pay visa fees. They are still dependents, they are minor. That is part of my experience. Raising a child, I had to pay for their visas, getting their permits to stay in Cambodia. Again, Cambodia, by the time I started, didn't have the best of schools for children. So it was a bit difficult for me to find the best school for my children. And when I found that best school, I had to pay through their nose to see them through primary and high school. It was quite expensive. It was an American school, at least to make sure they have a standard education. The public schools here are in Khmer. In fact, until 7 years ago, when they introduced English language at high school level, So they would only teach in Khmer. So for a foreign student, like those from Nigeria coming here, they would not fit into the system at all. So the only place for my children or for children from Nigeria would be in the private schools where they would study in English language. And if that would be the case, they would pay whatever they ask for. I had it, and then, of course, I had to use my strategies and my efforts. My wife were able to pay all the fees, whatever. But I must be honest, it was very, very expensive to see them through those international schools. In fact, might be, let me say, cheaper in the universities than in the high schools. Definitely. But raising a child also means you'll be able to handle the child, encourage, inspire, advise the child, motivate the child, because in most cases they are discriminated against in the school. And you have to encourage them, to tell them that black or white, black is the best. And try to overcome whatever treatment they might be given there. Whatever the situation, once you are determined, you'll be able to train your child anywhere. Yeah.
What other, is there other challenges of raising the children here?
The cultural impact is that it will be different from raising them back home in Nigeria. Out there, they mix up with people from other nationalities, and then they tend to borrow such characters. Of course, I observed that this era is different from our own era when we were children. So nowadays, they would use, in fact, my daughter's telephone, mobile phone, is 2 times more expensive than mine.
Of course.
Yet, she's my last born. So they tend to follow the latest technology, the internet and information systems, and all we need to do is to encourage them. Then there are some other vices in the society where we have to guide them against, not to go against the behavior patterns of most Cambodians. Like some of them drive, some of them drink, some of them smoke, some of them do some negative life patterns. But then, all in all,
they have a limit.
Encourage the children you are training in diaspora to be of good behavior.
Okay, what would be your best recommendations for young guys like us who are looking to raise their kids, at least for the time that we are here?
Yeah, I tell people some jokes sometimes. When you tell me that oh, your wife has just given birth to a baby, I say, come on, you have at least 21 years project. So you have to work for 21 years in your life before you be liberated from that child. At least 21. I'm almost at the peak of mine. So for those who have got younger children, I would advise them to find a way of controlling the children, encouraging them, pushing them ahead, motivating them. Whatever the situation, understand the difference between your own time and their own time. Understand the circumstances they are exposed to. We were not exposed to that in our own time. We didn't have computers in the school. We didn't use mobile phones in the school. And most of the things the internet is propagating nowadays were not available at our own time. So now you are having younger children, you need to direct them. They still don't know anything about life. It is the duty of parents who have much younger children to take them along with them and make sure that they don't go the wrong direction.
Good. Let's talk about Cambodian food. Do you eat Cambodian food?
Yeah, to some extent. There are some. There are also some Cambodian food that I do not eat. More so, when we go for a gathering or a wedding ceremony, they usually serve Cambodian food, and what we do is to be selective about them. Select the ones you can eat, because some of them do not meet my appetite, and I may not want to destroy my gustatory feelings by eating something that is not palatable. However, Cambodians take pride in their food.
Definitely.
But then they would want you to taste everything. But in my own opinion, I would simply advise people to eat something they decide to eat and not what they are compelled to eat.
Yes.
Cambodia has some nice dishes though. I like mostly their vegetable aspect of the dishes. And then they like fruits. But then coming to the other side of their cuisine, something like what they call praho is fermented fish, but then those may not be as good as the Nigerian salad.
Unfortunately, our neighbor were making it last night or in the evening, and you know how terrible it smells.
The smell is very bad. Very offensive.
My wife was like, "What is smelling?"
Very offensive.
I said, "Yes, this offensive smell is coming from the praho that they are
Definitely.
All right, it's been very great with you, sir. So, one last question before we let go. So, we know that you are a very busy man. So, we are from ALASCOSPICETV. I don't know if you've heard of ALASCOSPICETV.
I can say ALASCOSPICE is a household name here in Cambodia, and maybe it's going viral too. It's based on the production. It has been an invaluable contributor to the media, a very strong critic. ALASCOSPICE has been criticizing a lot of things, publicizing a lot of things, advertising a lot of things as well. But what I like most is the presence in all situations to cover whatever it is, good or bad. ALASCOSPICE is always there. The promotions are up to date, and I give kudos to the proprietor, Mr. Harry Spice.
Thank you very much for your time, Prof. We are very, very grateful and honored to have a time like this. I know that it's been very long I was trying to read. So, a little message for your people?
I just wish everybody well.
Okay.
Stay safe at this time of COVID-19. Wherever you are, please don't forget the people at home. The family comes first. Whether you have it or not, keep in touch. At least, let them know that you remember them. Let's be optimistic. Never be pessimistic. With full hope, we will survive. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much. It's great. It's an honor on our side, sir.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Bye.